I hereby call to order the Roseville City Council meeting for Monday, February 10th, 2025. Mr. City Manager, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Strawn.
Here.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Here.
Councilmember Groff.
Here.
Councilmember Bauer.
Here.
Mayor Rowe.
Here. And with us at the dais, we have our City Attorney Rachel Tierney, who's on my right at the end, and City Manager Pat Trudgeon, who's on my left at the other end of the dais. And we have other staff who will be participating in the meeting as events or agenda items come up. We'll make sure to make those introductions at that time. Would ask folks if you have a cell phone to assure that it is silenced, or otherwise doesn't disrupt the meeting this evening. We do have a copy of the meeting materials in a binder on the back table underneath the big clock by the back door. If anybody from the public needs to see the meeting materials, that's where you can check it out. It is one copy to share. And then we do have extra copies for personal copies of the agenda so that you can follow along with the meeting. With that, we'll ask folks to stand if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That then brings us to our rest of our agenda. First item is the approval of tonight's agenda. Is there any change from a staff perspective this evening, Mr. Trudgeon?
No changes by staff, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Are there any council requested changes or items council members would like removed from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Does not appear to be the case. And we'll just double check. Is there anyone in the audience tonight for an item in section 10 towards the end of tonight's agenda under consent agenda? These are items 10A through J, and they're normally fairly routine business items that are taken up as a single motion later in the meeting. And if there is anybody here at this time for one of those items, once again in section 10 of our agenda, starting at the bottom of the first page and carrying on to the second page, if you're here to either ask a question or speak about one of those items, if you let us know now, we can move that item earlier in the meeting so we don't make you stay till the end. Is there anyone here for an item in section 10 of tonight's agenda? All right, does not appear to be the case. Then a motion to approve the agenda as presented would be in order.
Second.
All right, it's moved by Councilmember Schroeder, seconded by Councilmember Groff to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. We have our agenda for tonight. Next is our first opportunity for public comment. This is a chance for general public comment. We will provide opportunities as agenda items come up for people to comment or ask questions about those items. But we do always at the start of each meeting provide an opportunity, as I said, for general public comment. This would be on either city business or items of interest to people in the community that are not on this evening's agenda. Is there anyone here to speak under general public comment at this time? Does not appear to be the case. That being so, then we'll move on with our agenda, and our first items are under business items this evening. We have a hearing, first of all, item 7A, which is to consider the Lake Owasso Safe Boating Association's request for a permit renewal of their water ski slalom course on Lake Owasso. And we have our Chief, Erica Shire, with us this evening, filling in for Deputy Chief Joe Adams, who is normally the go-to water ski guy, but is not here this evening. So I'm sure we'll be ably served by the Chief in that capacity. Welcome.
I'll do my best. Good evening. I'm here to introduce the Lake Owasso Safe Boating Association's request to have a permit for it's a water, not snow, water ski slalom course on Lake Owasso. And just a reminder, the actual permit for this is issued by Ramsey County. They have the jurisdiction, but several years ago, the Roseville City Council established a policy that they wanted to provide for public, an opportunity for public comment on any kind of permits involving the Roseville Lake. So Lake Owasso Safe Boating Association submitted their yearly written request looking for approval to then go forward with a permit for Ramsey County. Few things to note, it'll be in the same location that it's been for over 50 years now. They provided a certificate of insurance. I'm not aware of any problems that we've had, but again, jurisdiction would fall to Ramsey County Sheriff's Department, but staff is recommending to take public comment and then approve their request to move forward with Ramsey County. and they do have a representative here if you have any questions.
All right, thank you, Chief. Are there questions from the council for staff on this item? All right. Does the representative of the Safe Boating Association want to speak in support of this application or just stand for questions? Okay. We'll just stand for questions. And then we'll open it up for members of the public. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this request for the City Council to okay the association going to Ramsey County for their permit for this water ski course? If there is, this would be a chance to come up and have a seat at the table for public comment. All right, does not appear to be the case. So we'll go ahead and close the opportunity for public comment and go to council action. Is there a motion from the council on this request?
So moved. Second.
Right, it's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder, second by Councilmember Strawn to authorize or to okay, I guess, the application to Ramsey County for that water ski installation on Lake Owasso. Discussion on the motion. Is the maker of the motion Councilmember Schroeder?
The only thing is 56 years, that's a tradition, so that is something, thank you for continuing to do that.
Right, Councilmember Strawn is the seconder.
I had a lot of questions 4 years ago, and I think they're all everything's the same. Thank you.
Other discussion from council members? And I'll just say, if something being around for 56 years becomes a tradition, I guess I'm a tradition. With that, all those in favor of approving that application signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously, and that application is approved. Thank you again, Chief, and thanks to the representatives. That then brings us to our second business item this evening. This is a request of the City Council to hold a public hearing and consider a request to approve a plat at 571 Roselawn Avenue. And we've got our senior planner with us this evening, Brian Lloyd, to present this item. Mr. Lloyd, welcome.
Thank you. So I'll be using this camera on the ceiling. Thank you. As you mentioned, this is a subdivision application. The location of it is 571 Roselawn Avenue, Roselawn just east of Dale Street. And the aerial photo looks like that. On the property today, maybe it's even clearer recently on the property, I guess I should say, has been a barn and a smaller structure. Those have been permitted for removal, and I noticed this morning, have been demolished, so they are no longer there. The staff report mentions them as buildings that would be too close to the side property line that's proposed, but they're no longer an issue because they've been removed. And the proposal generally is to just split that one large parcel into two. Roselawn Avenue is on the south side of or the bottom of this drawing here. So it would be just a left half and a right half. Lot one over here is where the existing house would be. Some of those existing structures that were removed are the barn up here, and then the smaller building toward the middle of the site. The staff report does detail some of the information that we usually go through with regard to stormwater management and tree preservation and likely setbacks of potential future development. All of these are fairly straightforward, particularly with the removal of those structures that would have been encroachments either into the front yard setback or along that proposed side property boundary. The staff report does mention that this particular driveway would be here. Too close to this side property line, but as part of the stormwater management plan, which is actually something of a collaboration between this developer and the city of Roseville to get some treatment that isn't presently happening along Roselawn. Part of that stormwater management plan involves the removal of the driveway and making some improvements in the right-of-way there. So that is also, like I said, mentioned in the staff report, but not a concern. As staff, we have not heard any questions or comments from nearby property owners that would have been notified about this evening's public hearing. And with that sort of simple presentation, I would conclude by noting that we have a draft resolution for adoption tonight that does approve the proposed plat, along with a condition related to the park dedication payment of $4,250 in recognition of the creation of an additional residential parcel, as well as some condition related to the stormwater management plan and ultimately giving those improvements over to the city for long-term maintenance, because that'll partly be that public improvement as well. So with that, I can answer any questions if you have them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Strawn?
I know I'd asked this of you earlier, and I appreciate your answering, but just for the sake of the public, if on that particular attachment one, you could indicate the space between 564 and 558 Ryan, as well as 555 and 571.
Oh, up here, sure.
Yep. As they come down from Kent, my guess is they were originally intended to possibly connect directly to Roselawn, and then just the ownership or the allotment of how those particular throughways are set up in this arrangement.
Yeah, so up until earlier, I was going to say this year, up until last year, because it's 2025 now, there was a right-of-way that came through here that had 30 feet on the north side of it and 30 feet on the south side of it. And this half of the Kent Street right-of-way had come down to Roselawn Avenue. It was never a complete right-of-way, or a complete 60-foot right-of-way, that is, in that area. And the city had made the determination that neither this right-of-way nor this piece of Kent was needed for building a street or for maintaining some sort of infrastructure in it. So that was vacated last year and became, part of this parcel here. And so the question that Councilmember Strawn had asked was, do we need to be considering a potential dedication of right-of-way to complete that Kent Street one? But that's already being vacated, so there's not a need to consider that for the future.
And then just to confirm, that doesn't figure in, that wouldn't potentially be split into half of 571 for the future?
The property owners could do that conceptually, but as it turns out, the portion of this parcel here, prior to the vacation of the right-of-way, was owned by the same person as is proposing the subdivision tonight. And they have reached an agreement with this neighboring property owner to sell this entire parcel, which is 85 feet wide, I believe. So it's a conforming parcel and buildable in its own right, but I don't believe there are plans to build on it. It was sort of acquired by this neighboring property owner at 555 Roselawn as something of a buffer that they'll control from some new development.
And then just out of curiosity, that space coming down from Kent, south of Ryan, is that to provide access to 560 then at this point?
I guess I presume so. I wasn't keeping track of the discussions that were part of the vacation of the Kent Street right-of-way down here. If this were vacated, it would landlock that 560 parcel. The driveway for the 558 parcel also kind of comes through there to some degree. So yes, I presume that it's there at least in part to preserve access to 560, and perhaps there are other bits of infrastructure under there that rely on that right of way as well. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
And other questions, Councilmember Groff?
Just speak a little more to the water management plans and what you see for managing runoff.
I would not do that. I think I saw that Jesse Freihammer is back there, or somebody else from the engineering office could speak a little bit more to that.
In preparation of that, Mr. Freihammer is scrambling up to the table.
He's ready.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So stormwater management will be required because they are creating new impervious surface. So they will both have a city permit to meet city standards, as well as a capital region watershed permit to meet those standards. So we did work with this developer, since it is picking up some road right away. This will actually, they're constructing it, but it will end up being turned over to the city to maintain, just because of the topography. So we'll actually get some public benefit out of that, but in lieu of that, we will be taking over the long-term maintenance, but they'll be constructing that. But they'll be, as the RCA indicated, we'll there'll end up being an agreement on that as part of the condition of approval.
Okay, thanks.
All right, other questions from the council? And I just did want to confirm, I believe it is on this drawing as well, that there's a green line sort of 30 feet back from the front property line that seems to indicate a setback, and it appears that the existing structure is behind that setback.
Right, and
Existing home structure.
yeah, and that's not something that would change as a function of this particular subdivision proposal. So we would call that just the continuation of a legal nonconformity if it was
If
that.
it wasn't, right. Okay, thank you. Right, are there any other questions from the council? Right, otherwise, this is a public hearing. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to this proposed property division. We'll open up the public hearing, and is there anyone here who wishes to speak to this subdivision of this property? Right, going once, going twice. Does not appear to be anyone here to speak to this item. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing then and move to council consideration. Once again, we do have the suggested resolution, which is the attachment 5 in the meeting materials. Is there a motion from the council?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Schroeder to approve the resolution attachment 5 in the packet, approving this small plat with the conditions as outlined. Discussion on the motion as the maker, Councilmember Groff.
No, I think that this division makes sense, and it offers us the opportunity to have another home in the area. And it meets all our requirements, so I think it'll be a good addition to Roselawn.
Right, and as the seconder, Councilmember Schroeder.
I would just agree with the Councilmember Groff.
All right, other discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously, and that minor plat is approved. Good luck to the applicant and with their lot split and future plans, and thank you for staff for being here. That then brings us to our third business item this evening, which is consideration of perhaps a change to the what has been prior known as Les Mow May. And we have our environmental guru, specialist, whatever the proper title is here, Joel Bachman. I always get these titles wrong, to give this item introduction to us, and so I'll turn it over to Ms. Bachman.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Sustainability specialist.
That's what it is,
Title.
yes.
But Guru is good.
Guru, I do
like
like
that.
Guru. Maybe that would put me up a couple pay grades.
You'll have to talk to Pat about that later.
Thanks for giving the time today to discuss our Les Mow May initiative. This should be a pretty short presentation. We'll just take a little bit of a look back on what we've done in the last couple of years as far as our work with Les Mow May, No Mow May. Take a little look at the latest research and what we're seeing, what we're hearing from other cities who are taking similar approaches to we are, and then finally end with our recommendations and some Q&A and discussion. So Council first approved No Mow May in April of 2022, at the end of April, so we pushed out some last minute information to the public. It was very well received. We worked with communications to draft some initial education and outreach about it. We did have a little bit of confusion that our city inspector heard after the May was over, just about people weren't sure if it was okay to not mow, was it okay to mow? Nobody really understood what it was. They had about 20 plus properties that they had to work on bringing back into code compliance after May of 2022. From there, in 2023-24, we transitioned into what we are branded Les Mow May. That was based on resident and staff feedback. We wanted to take a little bit gentler, more moderated approach to the initiative. So we altered our messaging in 2023. We developed some branding and some outreach materials. Ian made us a really nice yard sign design, which is seen up above. We also created a landing page on our city website where people can go for resources about pollinator health and different lawn care tips. And as a result of our outreach, we received fewer complaints to our inspections department, and they had far less enforcement that they had to do in the months following May in 2023-24. Only about 10 to 12 properties needed to be amended after that. However, we're hearing a little bit more from the latest research that less mow May in the month of May is not necessarily the best option for pollinators in Minnesota. No mow May really originated in the UK, where their Mays are a little bit more like our Aprils. So it doesn't necessarily match with our meteorological systems in Minnesota. And also pollinators, most of them do emerge throughout the month of May, but they are emerging kind of gradually throughout the year, and they need forage and habitat support in other months besides just May. May is also typically a pretty rainy month for Minnesota. So what happens when we don't really mow a lot in the month of May is that we're letting that grass grow really long, and if people aren't adhering to, nice lawn care tactics by going down by a third of the height at a time and aggressively mowing, that will stress that turf grass. Sorry, the screen glitched a little bit. It'll stress the turf grass quite a bit when you're heading into an already stressful, dry June, July period, which, as we've seen in the last few years, have been exceptionally dry for Minnesota. Most of the blooming beneficial species that we see, do we need to pause to?
I think that cord.
Maybe a loose connection there.
I was playing with it, so maybe that's why. Thanks, Jesse.
All right.
Okay, hopefully that fixes. I didn't mean to give you a little bit of a rave behind the dais. Most of the beneficial blooming species that we're seeing in grass, between like the clover, the dandelions, or if people are planting bee lawns, a lot of the different species that you see in there really don't grow much beyond 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches. So they're well within our existing turf ordinance. And then if people didn't really have anything blooming in their lawn and they were just letting their lawn grow during the month of May to try to be supportive, it's not really adding any other beneficial pollinator benefits by just letting your turf grass grow along. It's just kind of maybe letting your turf grass go to seed a little bit, and then you're overseeding when you're mowing in June. Because of this, a lot of other cities are starting to back away from no mow, less mow May. And actually, I posted, luckily, we were really much in line with the U of M Bee Lab research as well. They even show this image of the Star Tribune's article that featured us last spring on their Bee Lab website. So I think they kind of think that we're going in the right direction, but most cities who were observing no mow May are now moving more towards a year-round pollinator protection program. So Vadnais Heights, Mendota Heights, Egan, Edina is continuing to suspend their enforcement of their turf grass ordinance, but they're not really doing any kind of active engagement or promotion of no mow May going forward. Other cities, Columbia Heights, Northfield, Rosemount, are already kind of backing off to less mow May instead of no mow May. So with all of this in mind, we're recommending we rescind the original resolution for less mow May and focus more on reaffirming year-round pollinator support, which we already do to some extent. So we're hoping to align more with the University of Minnesota's slow mow summer recommendations. And we have done some communication pushes out in the last year or two about kind of spring cleanup recommendations, fall cleanup recommendations, things like not raking up all of your leaves, leaving some leaves in a few corners of your yard for pollinators to hibernate and nest in over winter. Additionally, focusing on just adding more native plants to your yard instead of just letting, clover and dandelions bloom once or throughout a couple of months. Flowering trees and shrubs are really a critical source of food for pollinators as well. So our tree sale that we do in the spring is always a really great push for this, because the flowering trees, I think, are usually the first ones to go. Those are really a great source of food in the spring. And also looking at maybe replacing turf with either some of those bee lawn mixes, flowering plants, or there's also fescues that are coming out as a turf alternative that are lower maintenance, require less water, less mowing, and are much more resilient to our typical climate. So the picture you see in that, the lower picture, it's a little hard to see with the text, but the U of M Extension did a study on different types of turfs, and they planted squares of different species and just let it go for 45 days without any kind of watering or irrigation. And the green squares are where the fescues are, and those lasted much longer with a very similar look and feel to grass, to Kentucky bluegrass, but much better, much more resilient and requiring much less intervention. In addition to advocating for pollinator support, just advocating for responsible mowing practices. So things like we're recommending that people mow based on height instead of some people get on a I mow every Thursday kind of schedule. And I have some dear neighbors who are wonderful about that, but you don't necessarily need to do it at the same day every week. Using higher mower height settings as well is really, your grass is going to grow a little bit longer and it'll be a little bit more resilient. Mulching your clippings, especially if you're mowing responsibly and not letting it grow long and then hacking a whole lot of it off, you won't have a lot of, those clumps of clippings, but it should return nutrients back into the grass. Mowing in the evenings is one way you can disturb pollinators less when they're less active. Recommending transitions to electric mowers. Small engines don't have catalytic converters, and so mowing your lawn for hour and a half, 2 hours is the equivalent of as many emissions as you would emit going on a 4 or 5 hour road trip in a car. And also just reducing fertilizer, because fertilizer runoff can add to algae blooms in our local waters. With all that said, that is all in line with our current ordinances. So as mentioned, our turf ordinance recommends that anything has to be 8 inches or lower. Any kind of beneficial flowering plants that we mentioned that you would see in your turf is well below that. We do have a natural landscaping guideline that the Parks Department puts out as well. So we plan to work directly with Parks and Community Development. So if there's an area that somebody is claiming as natural landscaping but is coming into question, then we'll work with Community Development and we'll go out there and evaluate to make sure that they're not letting invasive species go, run amok or anything like that. And with that, I'll leave it to any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bakken. Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Strawn.
I note that we don't mention watering at all in this. I know that irrigation systems and such strain the grass as well by requiring it to continue to grow, continuing. So we're kind of feeding into that cycle. Is there been any discussion about potentially encouraging people to back off from watering? I know some people are really like their water.
Mm-hmm. I think that would go alongside our recommendations to kind of push responsible mowing practices. So with that, not only like mowing at night, mowing less frequently, but thinking of your watering usage as well. I know we don't have any kind of restrictions right now in the city. Shoreview, a neighboring community, does have some watering restrictions, but that could be something that as the summers progress, if we see if they continue to be as dry as they've been, that might be something we'll want to look into.
Can you speak to what the watering restriction is in Shoreview? Do you know?
Offhand, I believe they have kind of an even and odd day schedule, I think, in Shoreview, where if they're in a restricted period, or either it's even or odd days or even or odd house numbers. I can't remember. It's one of those things where it kind of alternates and gets about half the city has a chance to water on this day and half the city on another day.
Thank you.
Other questions from council? I definitely concur with the watering discussion, because I think there are a lot of folks who are sort of in the traditional mode of maintaining a lush green lawn all summer long, no matter how much or how little rain we get. And I think that just lends itself to more and more uses. And if you don't necessarily use an electric mower, as you were just noting, the emissions from those small engines are just extreme by comparison to modern vehicles, and so it really makes a difference in the environment for people as well as all creatures otherwise. So
And ambient noise too.
well, there is that too. There's the the quality of life concerns too, certainly. Although some people love the hum of 10 lawnmowers going on a Saturday afternoon, so as long as they're far enough away.
Add leaf blowers.
Well, yeah, there's that too. But I think it's really something where you can let the grass go a little longer between waterings than maybe traditionally, and it is a plant that does well up to a point, especially the Kentucky bluegrass, when it isn't watered constantly. And I think that there's some ways out there, whether it's just looking at irrigation systems that sense rain and compensate and don't sprinkle as often, or just manually adjusting your manual sprinkler system or your hose and manual sprinklers to not sprinkle as often. That's all things that I think we should be encouraging people to do.
Sure. Yeah, and we do have a rebate program from the Met Council where we have different water saving rebates for things like shower heads, toilets, and things like that, dishwashers. But we also have one for smart sprinkler systems, so it doesn't get used as frequently as the washer, dryer, shower head rebates that we have. But that is something that we've been encouraging as well.
Good to know.
I also note that the Excel Energy has electric rebates for residential for lawnmowers, snow blowers, trimmers, leaf blowers, chainsaws, so other items. So if there was any way that we could encourage by sharing that information, people are always appreciative. And then Noelle and I did comment that our local ACE is like the largest retailer of the eco lawnmowers in the state or something like that. So I think there's a lot of interest, and if people had that little bit of incentive and kind of coupled us, or kind of taken together as a large package, they see themselves as providing an opportunity to kind of do good as a whole piece of work. I think that's helpful.
And I think and to that point, we did invite Ace Hardware to our October electric vehicle event too. They were really great about bringing a bunch of snow-related equipment, and they usually have a very large selection of electric lawn care equipment things. And the thing that I really like about them is that they're more user-friendly. I don't really know what to do with a gas mower, honestly, with priming the choke or whatever you have to do. So I recommended an electric mower to my mother, actually, so she's using that on her own out in Wisconsin. So I think that's another benefit for them. They're just user-friendly. So.
True. Councilmember Schroeder.
Yes, thank you for presenting this. I've actually been bringing this up numerous times. And, based on the information, we learn as we move forward with these things. And I do like the idea of doing more of the promoting the pollinators more than just for a month of not cutting our grass. And I do really support this. And I thank you for working on this and doing the research and coming up with, this tonight. So, again, thank you.
Thank you.
Other council questions? Councilmember Bauer.
Are there any plans of working with parks or other programs to build pollinator houses for wild pollinators? And they're very easy to make.
They are. Yeah, I
take
actually.
very little effort and great, fun thing to do with kids.
Yeah, we at Earth Day a couple of years back, I actually led a bee house activity for kids, which was a very tedious activity for but it was really fun, and I think we'll continue working on that. And I think we could build some more like I built them out of old aluminum cans and cardboard and construction paper, but I think we could build some more
Pieces with bamboo. I've done them with bamboo.
or
really
even
well.
just a bunch of sticks and stuff. So I think that would be another fun activity to bring back and continue to work on at the nature center too. I think that'd be cool. So good suggestion.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Councilmember Graff.
I would just sort of echo what Councilmember Schroeder said. It's nice to go on this journey together, but as we learn, we can make changes, and I think it's really good that you bring this back early in the conversation, metro-wide, so
Yeah.
that we can stay up in the forefront of these issues. So, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you I know that it was council driven to come back and discuss this too as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to chat early before we make any changes so we can get everything out to the public in advance. So.
Right. Councilmember.
I would just like to, again, commend you and the rest of the folks in Roseville working on it. It was really exciting when I looked on the Bee Lab, knowing this was coming up before I even read my packet, and seeing that we were kind of listed as a model. And I appreciate too, Councilmember Schroeder and I had a conversation about this maybe a month or two ago, and how, just thinking about how we can stay ahead and keep learning, maybe not from our mistakes, but how we can continue to do better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like everyone's been saying, it's a growing understanding of how best to respond to this situation. And I think B Lab, I think a few years ago, was advocating for No Mow May too, and they shifted their messaging, and so can we. So, thank you.
Right, so I'm going to check with the council. Is there any objection to proceeding on the basis of what's been presented this evening? No objection.
I'd make one comment.
Councilmember
In
Brown.
the resolution that we have listed here, or that's
Oh,
before
we do
us,
have to, right. We do
Yeah, I
have
was gonna
to,
say,
Yes,
you
yep.
probably want to vote on that.
on line 20, we say, whereas insects, especially bees, serve. I would like to have that changed to be, say, whereas insects, especially honeybees. The only reason is, or sorry, not honey, bumblebees. Bees are not necessarily always the best pollinators. In some cases, they actually are destructive. I can say this having owned bees and had an apiary for many years, for a few years. But if we put honeybees, that would be more accurate. Bumblebees. Yeah, bumblebees, sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Wayne.
Yes, yeah, Bumble.
Bumblebees, that'd be more appropriate.
So you recommend changing bees to
bumblebees.
bumblebees?
Yes.
Okay.
Bumblebees are actually the much better, and honeybees are actually not native to.
They're
North
not a
America.
native species,
Right,
yeah. So
right.
we, and actually, they're not as effective at pollinating as some of our native species too, because they won't go out when it's rainy or extra cold. They're a little bit less hardy.
Babies.
Right, right.
But we'll work on making that update.
Right, is there a motion on the resolution?
I would make the motion.
I'd second it.
All right, and perhaps by way of comment on the motion. All right, moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Schroeder to adopt the resolution with the change suggested for changing bees to bumblebees. Councilmember Groff is the maker of the motion. Comments?
Well, I think we've discussed it quite a bit. I'm just very pleased with the work that you're doing with the environmental issues and bringing these forward to us and tweaking them as we go along. It's appreciated.
Great, Councilmember Schroeder.
I would agree.
All right, other discussion on the motion, Councilmember
I
Stone.
just wanted to add, I mentioned this to Noel, just that creating all new signs, they're filled with just pretty much forever chemicals. Those signs are going to last till the end of time. And she jokingly put the summer across there, but I really don't know if it's a terrible thing to just have a sticker or something that goes over that and rather than each sign costs, $7 a piece and they are going to last forever. If there's a possibility of, rather than throwing them all out, reusing them until their life was over. And so I wanted to make that as a suggestion.
No, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, we have probably 150 signs left in storage yet, and so last year there wasn't as much interest in getting the signs. I think because a lot of people who participated in 2023 saved their signs, which is great. And they're also just really cute signs. That's, I think, half the reason why it's on the B Labs website is because it's really attractive.
I think we could certainly get stickers
I think we could
out to the
absolutely get
existing
stickers.
sign holders too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep, absolutely. So that's
May or
something
may
I
not
can.
have a record of those folks.
Yeah, so I can push that out to our sustainability newsletter and such if people are interested in that. I think that's a
Okay.
great idea.
All right. So we have the motion before us. Was there any other discussion on the motion? I just wanted to, I meant to comment on this earlier, but if we have the tree sale, which is great. I wonder if there's anybody who's interested in doing, say, native planting sales or those types of things that we might be able to partner with. I know there are a lot of things out there, of course, but
I've been in touch with a few entities in the last few years about that exact thing. So that's definitely a possibility that I'd like to bring forward. So.
that would be great. All right, thank you. With that, we do have the motion before us to adopt the resolution rescinding our prior less MOME or no MOME resolution and going forward under current policy with these enhancements as have been laid out. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously and that policy change is made. Thank you again, Ms. Bakken, and everybody else who's been working on it.
Thank you very much.
All right, that then brings us to item 7D, which is to consider or look at a draft request for proposals for architectural services related to various city campus projects. And I think, Mr. Trudgeon, are you starting this one? Or
Freihammer
Mr.
will.
Freihammer is, okay. I made an incorrect note earlier before the meeting.
Oh, sorry about that.
Welcome, Public Works Director, Mr. Freihammer, for this item.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So back in January, Council had a pretty thorough discussion about the overall maintenance operations center and the license passport center and kind of how the overall project, all the different steps and processes involved before we get to a project. So at that meeting, Council did direct staff to look at putting together an RFP, so into an architectural services to look at different options for potentially reallocating campus or whatnot. So with that, staff did draft a an RFP for architectural services, so that is what we have as attachment 1. So just a few of the bullet points that we did lay out, and I have it up on the screen. So we did lay out kind of a rough scope. We did break it out into phase 1 and 2. So phase 1, there's a lot of acronyms in this, so there's a lot of very lengthy words. So we did. I'll try to explain it out here. But the first step would be to provide an updated cost estimate of the proposed license, passport, and dance studio. That was currently in the Civic Campus Master Plan. So basically, an update of what the current plan is. The second part would be an update of the Maintenance Operations Center. So as you recall, those estimates were done in 2022. There was a lot of inflationary costs on, so certainly just getting a baseline level of where that is should be a pretty simple task for any architect to do, because you're basically just updating those unit costs. There's not a lot of design put into that. And then the next option was provide an estimated for a single-story licensed passport dance center. The current one is a 2-story building, so I think the theory was there'd be a licensed passport center on the bottom, and then the dance studio would be on the top, was kind of the current thought. But if there's more room to put as a single story, potentially that could be a cost savings. And then the kind of fourth bullet was provide feasibility options to reuse portions of the existing maintenance facility. So basically look at which parts of the existing maintenance facility could be used. There's really 3 buildings there. There's the north garage, the main garage, as well as some office space, as well as the old Parks garage. So the existing facility is really 3 former phases that were all kind of put together. And then the fourth option, provide feasibility option to reuse portion of the existing maintenance facility for other uses such as office space, restaurant, or event space. And then included with that would be provide layouts and cost estimates. And then overall for this entire phase would be provide a report and presentation to council. So in the staff report, we basically mentioned reviewing kind of all the existing documents that have been put together, as well as some staff feedback and walkthroughs. We did not include any public engagement with this because it's kind of a refresh and looking at anything, but certainly that could be added if council feels. And then the second phase, and this would only be authorized after phase 1, but we thought we would include that, is provide 2 alternative options for the licensed passport center on city campus that would result in cost savings. So basically letting the consultant kind of think outside the box. Certainly you could probably provide a lot of options, but we did put the caveat in there. Obviously I think the council's looking for cheaper options, not more expensive ones, so we did throw that in there. And then we did add one little line item in yellow, provide alternatives designs to consider for the civic campus plan, pre-design plan. So that, I think our thought process on that was just to open it up so we have more options in case we need to look further into updating the campus larger, if that ends up having to come at a later date. And then, like I said, that would be a second presentation that if we end up going to that phase would also be accommodated with that. And then I did include a rough schedule. So if council, if we can agree on a scope tonight, we'd release that RFP very shortly, have proposals due on March 3rd, award the contract around March 17th at a council meeting, and then hopefully give the consultant about 2 months and bring that report back to council for a presentation on May 19th. And then we kind of included a rubric of what we would use for criteria. It's similar to what we used last time we chose an architect. We did put a little more value on the cost than we did previously. So with that, I can certainly open it up to any questions that the council may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Freihammer. Are there questions from the council on the proposed RFP? Oh, Mr.
Just
Drag.
a little bit more on that additional language. We added that after thinking about what happens if we go through this process and there might be some more questions we want to have answered, or maybe take a look at the greater design because of that. I don't have a specific example when we might need that, but we want to keep that option so we can be nimble, so we can utilize the existing architect to do some additional work. Doesn't mean we will. We'll get there when we get there if we do. But I also want to point out that when we get to a final design stage, if we get there, that's a whole nother RFP and process that we'll be doing here. But this is just to get all the answers that we need. I think there's a lot that we don't know, we're trying to figure out, and just don't want to leave any rock unturned in case we learn some things as part of that phase 1 work, and then we decide we want some more information, more iterations or something like that. That might require, depending on that scope, how much we're looking at the overall plan, it might require a separate contract, which we would bring forward, but we could utilize the same architect as part of that, with versus going out for a whole RFP and putting us another 3 months behind on things. So just trying to be nimble, and probably just trying to anticipate the uncertainty of it, and not really sure if we're going to actually need that. But we thought it'd be helpful to put that in the RFP now, so we can make everybody that bids on it aware that there might be some additional work.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that clarification and additional information. Questions from the council? Councilmember Strawn.
I was wondering, do we have any proposed potential ballpark on pricing? What we think is where these are going to come in as?
Not really. It's a little bit up in the air. I mean, I think some of the original tasks are really relatively cheap if you actually broke it down by each little bullet. But certainly as you start investigating into reusing the buildings, I mean, there's got to be a walkthrough, some thorough design. They do have to provide a layout and some stuff. But I feel like if I'm guessing, I'm going to look really, really dumb. But I mean, I'm guessing around $50,000, but I could be off. I'm an engineer, not an architect. As well as that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Bauer.
Should we consider parking in this RFP at all, or have that evaluated or looked at as part of this? It will have to be at some point, but I'm wondering.
Yeah, I guess I would infer that parking is included. You can't have one without the other. So certainly if you reuse the building, I wouldn't assume they would design utilizing the existing yard as a parking lot. But yeah, you can't. Certainly parking is part of the License Passport Center or whatever features you're putting on the campus.
Councilmember Schroeder.
So, so phase 2 would happen after phase 1 is done and it's presented, correct? And that, would we be getting into phase 1 and realize we need to expand it? So could it be that phase 2 could happen even before phase 1 is totally done? Or would it only happen once phase 1 is totally done?
I would say we would get council feedback if you guys want to start exploring those other options. One of my thoughts is, once, for example, we get updated costs and the costs are half the price, maybe that's enough. Council says, well, we've seen enough, we'll just move with the current plan. Or if they come back at the same price, okay, that's not an option. Or the first part of the reuse of the buildings is an option. Well, maybe you guys want to explore more options. But I think certainly you guys are going to want to see the results of phase 1, make a decision before we go into phase 2. At least that's how I theorized it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So
Councilmember Bauer.
following up on that point, are you suggesting maybe rather than just having a final report, an early report to council or prior to the May 17th, nor just kicking off a possibility of doing phase 2?
Or a phase 1 report?
Or yes.
What I'm thinking is, do we need to have updates as it's going along versus waiting till the very end to get the report? I assume our city manager will be the one navigating that, to think maybe the council needs to be updated before it's finalized, to see if maybe we need to move before. So I guess I just wanted to make sure that there's some flexibility.
2 months isn't a lot of time necessarily.
Right,
So I think we'll be getting to the final phase 1 report stage pretty quickly. I'm not sure that there's going to be like a halfway through the process point where there's going to be much of an update until they kind of get things more along, in which case you're close to that timing anyway. I don't know. But I mean, it would seem to me, I guess, if the consultant comes back and says, here's a bunch of information, well before the sort of the expected May 19th timeframe, we're not going to wait till May 19th to talk about it.
Correct, and we'll certainly have them, get some feedback on that when they propose that. I'm sure they'll mention that in their scope. And like I said, that's phase 1. If phase 2 goes, it would go beyond that. The May 19th is not for phase 2, but we did want to give a date, something reasonable. But yeah, a consultant may come back and say, hey, we can put this together in a month. It's not a lot of time. I mean, we're only going to release it here theoretically sometime this week, and it's still a relatively quick turnaround, even though it's not a lot of work. Obviously, you guys want a thorough report. You want to explore the options. You don't want it just to be a real quick review. So, like I said, that's our best guess of time frame. Certainly, we release that. We can get feedback from them. But if you guys do want to check in, we can certainly add that. It's just going to delay the time. So we did try.
I would say not to add a check-in, only if they find something that, say, there's something that's wrong with the maintenance building where it says we can't use this at all, why continue on with the phase one if you all of a sudden discover, oh, nope, this building is a hazard, we can't use it. So then you stop and then.
Well, yeah, I can't imagine if they find that out that they're going to continue
Right, but that's-
engineering something.
Right, but
for
that's
it.
where you just want to make sure it's clear that we
Right.
don't want to wait till they, once something like that would be found, you'd want to make sure we'd say, okay, stop, let's pivot.
And I would say throughout the process, staff will be involved, so
Right.
there would be those milestones, if nothing else, just to inform the council, but certainly
Right.
if there's something significant, we'll
Right.
bring that right to the council.
Absolutely.
Immediately. So there'll be a lot of ability for us to communicate about where we're at.
Perfect.
Any other questions for staff? All right. I do want to provide an opportunity for public comment. Once again, this is a request to approve a request for proposals for services to do this design work as outlined, primarily architectural services. Once again, just a reminder that for public comment, we do have a 3-minute time limit per speaker. I do try to enforce that gently but consistently. And also do want to note that as you begin your comments, just please address questions or comments to the city council and begin your comments with your name or street or address for the record. Hello and welcome.
Roger Hess Jr., Wagner Place. Where it talks about on here the feasibility options and talks about office space, restaurant, and event venue. If possible, I'd like you to include recreational uses and to see if there's any possible recreational uses could happen in the current Public Works building. And then I still want, we've waited forever to build a new public works facility. I don't want to build it in phases. I want to get it started and get it done right away. So, but to do that, you got to get the license center out of the way. So I would like you to have a third option on here and have someone spend 2 minutes to just call, see what it costs to rent space to put that in. Because if you rent some space for 2 or 3 years, it's out of the way, and that gives you 2 or 3 years to really work on what you want to do with the future of the license center. Plus, if it costs $500,000 to $1 million a year to build a building for 20 years, and it only costs $100,000 or $150,000 to rent space, and you only make $200,000 or $300,000 a year income, it makes a lot more sense to rent space rather than building a whole new building or whatever. So I'm sure someone here knows how to call a rental place, call some place that rents space, like Harmar or wherever, and just say, hey, you got 5,000 or 7,000 square feet. What's the cost for the rent and the camp? It would be nice to have that information when you're doing this too. Okay? You have a good evening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak to this item this evening? It does not appear to be the case. We appreciate the public input, and I would note, I don't know that the calling the rental entities for property would necessarily fall under the services of this architectural effort, but I think that is something that the city will be investigating as part of our process. So I don't think that's, because it isn't necessarily listed in the scope here, I don't think that precludes it from happening, as I understand it. And I do appreciate the request for considering recreational uses. I think the problem we have is that hasn't been something that's been through sort of a community process like the rest of this has, and so I would be a little uncomfortable sort of adding a laundry list of potential recreational uses to a facility that we really don't know how that fits in with what the community is looking for and or what we're able to even run on this site when it comes to parking, as was mentioned before, and other matters. And so I appreciate the enthusiasm for that, but I think we need to keep personally, I think we need to keep our scope a little focused on sort of the project or projects at hand right now. And certainly I think we ought to have any of those community discussions about other uses or other activities in the city and how they might be facilitated or put into facilities in due course. I don't want to say we shouldn't have those conversations. I just don't know how we fit that into this process. Councilmember Strong.
I'd like to take you to task a little bit on that. We just went through our Envision Roseville process, and there was a very high interest in having some community entertainment spaces. I'm not intimating that this has never been part of what we've talked about in this particular plan, but I also don't want to take it out as something that the public hasn't specifically called out as something they're interested in doing. But again, I don't think this has ever been part of this particular plan to say we're going to add recreational on the civic campus. But I do think the interest has been there time and again, and I think the Envision Roseville stuff does show that people have an interest in that. So I don't think that would be without some type of background to say that there's interest. So.
True. Councilmember Bauer.
I do think regarding the phasing, I do, looking at this, and if it's decided that it is feasible to use the existing maintenance facility, I do believe that would change. It may cause changes in the phasing of this project. So the phasing as originally laid out may change. I think that's one of the things that will fall out from this. In regarding using the recreational space, this proposal doesn't suggest that we need to use all of the maintenance facility space. There may just be portions of it that we don't. And at a future date, we may be able to use other portions of it with other funds at a future time for recreation. I don't think choosing not to do it now precludes us from doing something with it in the future if the space is available.
I think that's true to the extent that that space doesn't have to be used for parking or other needs that associate with this. I think that's the big challenge. Yeah. And I think also it's a very good point that perhaps as part of this effort, some sense of what might change in terms of phasing should be a part of what's provided to the city as well, especially if we are able to seem to be able to do a reuse of some of those existing facilities. If that buys us something in terms of speeding the phasing along, that's certainly a consideration that should be before the council as part of that decision making.
That's in the RFP.
That is in the RFP. All right, good.
Yeah, I think really the pros and cons. That's schedule. Obviously, if you can expedite the schedule a year, that's a huge pro. Versus obviously, the opposite is going to make costs go up. So, but that's why I think we'll get a detailed layout of what would be the benefit of doing this versus the current campus master plan.
And as I understand it, we are not limiting the consideration of what parts or portions of any of the existing maintenance facility could be used for any of the purposes that we've outlined here. We're just saying, take a look at the whole thing and make some recommendations, and maybe there's more than one.
Correct.
Right, thank you. Are there any? Well, we'll close the opportunity for public comment unless there is somebody else who wishes to speak. Did you wish to speak? I apologize. Come on up, have a seat at the table, and once again, just state your name for the record.
I'm sorry, my name's Ed Sweeney. I'm here for 571 Rose Lawn.
Oh, I can let you know we approve that.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, we got going faster than we expected to, so yeah, yes, you have been approved.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
That was easy.
All right. And since we're catching up on old business, I should also note that I forgot to do public comment for the pollinator discussion. So if somebody was here for that, we will provide you an opportunity if you wish to speak to that just after this item. So be prepared. All right, with that, once again, we've closed the public comment on this item and are under council consideration of the requested draft request for proposals. We've talked, I think there's been a suggested change under phase 2. We've talked a little bit about making sure that we do talk about the phasing aspect of the project as well as parking. Anything else we want to make sure is included as part of this and or a motion to authorize the RFP?
I would move to authorize the RFP with the input that has been given by council.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Bauer. Discussion on the motion. Councilmember Groff as the maker of the motion.
I think this is going to be very helpful information for us to have to move forward and to make further decisions. I'm very eager to see what the new costs might be and what the potential for the building would be. I fully realize that remodeling existing buildings is not always more cost effective, but I would like to see what those numbers look like.
Right, and Councilmember Bauer is the seconder of the motion.
I'd agree with Councilmember Groff. The results of this will definitely help the council going forward in making our decisions and what the path forward looks like.
Okay, other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously, and that RFP is authorized. Thank you again to everyone. That then brings us to item 7E, which is to receive an update on the commissioner application process, and I believe this is Mr. Trudgeon for
Yes,
this
I'll
item.
finally present a case. How about that? I'm happy to report that we did receive a total of 28 applicants for our vacancies, which are numerous. It's 8, 11, 12 vacancies that we have. And in front of you, and a handout tonight, is just the amount of applicants we have for each commission. And as you know, we do have a rule that we'd like to have, as much as possible, twice the number of applicants for the amount of openings. So as you can see with equity, we have 3 openings. We have 8 applicants as their first choice and 1 as their second choice. Finance, we just have 1 opening, and we have 2 applicants, so that's double. For parks, we have 4 openings and 11 as the first choice and 3 as the second choice. Planning, we have 3 openings, so we have 5 as the first choice and 2 as the second choice. So that double a number isn't there in the first choice, but certainly is there in the second choice. And then for the Police Civil Service Commission, we have 1 opening, we have 2 as the first choice, and actually 2 more as the second choice. So there's quite a variety of interests, which is really great to see. This is a pretty high number. As you will recall, we did set aside February 19th and 20th, next Wednesday and Thursday, for interviews. We'll be using both nights, and we'll be getting the agenda together and trying to group it up the best we can for both those nights. We'll send that out along with the applications later this week. So I just wanted to have a check-in. The time this packet went out, we weren't sure how many applicants we had. The deadline was Friday, so this is the update. So we should be good to go for next week. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the council, Councilmember Groff.
Did you do something differently to promote, let people know?
I wish we could say there was something we did specifically.
Okay.
We just kept on pushing
Dial, we turn.
Yeah, we kept on pushing out the information. Certainly, we were concerned that we didn't have
Yeah.
enough, so we just kind of probably did it a little bit more frequently. But as often is the case, people don't apply to the deadline, and we saw a lot come in.
Okay.
Even I got an update Friday morning, and then by the afternoon there were 3 or 4 more. So they were really coming at the end of the day. So I guess that's good. But we'll take a look at what we did there, and hopefully there's something in there. But just trying to promote it as much as possible. And I think the word of mouth, and I think from what I heard, I think a lot of council members were out there. So thank you for that, and really pushing people to apply. So that made a big difference, I think.
Yeah, and I think it seems like there's always some evangelism on the part of Parks and Recreation staff too, because they're connected with people who volunteer a lot and participate in park programs and things like that. So I think that helps as well, certainly in that area. Councilmember Strawn.
I just wanted to add, thank you, Ms. Olson, for putting it on LinkedIn. I've noticed that the last couple cycles, but it's so easy to to share that with others, and it does get a more professional person, so it may not include all of the people that we hope to attract, but I do feel like it gives an opportunity for it to go maybe a little bit farther and wider than maybe some other social media platforms. So
That's a good point. The other thing I just wanted to note is I hope that we give the applicants the opportunity to choose which night works best for them as much as possible, because I think that helps when people can't make it one night but can make it another night. Hopefully that might improve the potential for people not attending their particular assigned time. I know in the past we've sort of seemed to have done it through the alphabetical listing in order, and I just, it seems to me that we should, if we can, give people the option if one night works better than the other. We can't accommodate everybody all on one night no matter what, but if there's some flexibility there, it would be helpful.
Well, we try to communicate as soon as we can about when the nights are. If there are some conflicts, we'll try to work that out. One of the reasons we do group them together because we do invite the chairs to come. And so,
Understood.
if it's kind of haphazard, I think, it may be a little challenge. But we get your point because we do lose some people because they can't make it. We did, of course, at the beginning of the process, say on the 19th and 20th,
Right.
please make yourself available. But I think I know of one person already that can't be there at all because they're out of town. So we're always going to have some that way, but we'll try to do the best we can.
Okay. All right, other comments, questions from council members? Otherwise, I think we're ready to get this rolling here. All right, Ms. Olson, was there anything you wanted to contribute that either corrects something I said or
I just wanted to give a shout out to our community relations team because we did do a few things differently this year with our advertising. We did go out to a few different businesses. We were also at a few events where we were engaging people. I know that it was in our newsletter in addition to all of our social media, but we really put an effort out to have those more one-on-one conversations with people as well. So our community relations team really did a really good job at a very, short period of time, but they went out to several different events, and I believe they also were at a few different businesses as well, potentially even the coffee shop over here, helping drum up some opportunities. So I just wanted to mention that as some of the things that have been a little bit different this year.
All right. No, it's good to know that. Thank you very much. All right, we will look forward to, once again, that process getting underway then. I don't believe there's any action required this evening because we have all of the plan in action. That then brings us to consideration of meeting minutes. Excuse me. And we have two sets of minutes before us this evening. We have both from the same evening, January 13th. We had a city council meeting as well as an economic development authority meeting. And I believe, Councilmember Strawn, you had passed along this afternoon or this morning some additional changes to what was presented to the council. And I did make a note of both of those on a copy that I've already shown to other council members to kind of prep them for this. I'll pass it down to you just to make sure I haven't misinterpreted what you're asking for. But I think it would be in order to include those changes if they meet with your concurrence. There was some for the EDA and some for the council.
Right. I think 135 and 136 in EDA minutes were a little bit confusing because it asked a question without having a question mark.
That's not uncommon in these minutes. I've
Right,
noticed.
but it was very confusing. There was just a bunch of words strung together. So in my intent, I guess, Member Strawn asked how many units the city saw built between the Edison, the Oasis, and the Harbor, and I had intended that maybe a question mark. Those will all be people not reflected in the Stantec numbers. And I think what you have is fine. I think I just wanted to make sure that there was a little bit better clarity on what the intention was there. And then, obviously, when you omit the word not, you get the opposite impact. So I just wanted to make sure that that was added.
All right, very good. With that, if we could do a single motion for both sets of minutes, or if we need to take them up individually.
So, motion to approve both sets of minutes, as noted.
All right, moved by Councilmember Strawn, seconded by Councilmember Groff to approve both sets of minutes with Councilmember Strawn's changes, which I can pass down to staff, actually, just to make sure there's no ambiguity about those. Is there any discussion on that motion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously, and those minutes are approved. That then brings us to our consent agenda for this evening. We didn't have any items removed, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Trudgeon to give us a brief rundown of our consent items.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 10A approves payments in the amount of $1,560,573.54. Item 10B approves the purchase of a new Bobcat vehicle for Public Works, the hiring of a contractor to conduct private fire hydrant inspections, and the purchase of fuel for 2025 from the state contract. Item 10C approves the renewal of a short-term rental license for 1901 Ryan Avenue. Agenda item 10D approves entering into a professional services agreement with Tubman in the amount of $20,000 to provide services to persons in our community facing relationship violence, sexual assault, exploitation, homelessness, addiction, and mental health challenges in partnership with the Roseville Police Department. This funding was included as part of the 2025 city budget. Agenda item 10E approves entering into a professional services agreement with the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce and a cooperative funding agreement with the cities of Maplewood and St. Paul regarding the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance. Agenda item 10F approves the acceptance of additional funding of $50,000 through the State of Minnesota Intensive Comprehensive Peace Officers Education and Training, or IC POET grant. This grant will allow the city to recruit and pay for the education and training of a police officer candidate that is looking to transition to a law enforcement career. The city was previously awarded $100,000 in IC POET funding to assist 2 police officer candidates. With the acceptance of these funds, the city will now receive a total of $150,000 to assist 3 police officer candidates to transition to law enforcement. Item 10G approves entering into an agreement with and accepting a crisis response grant from the Minnesota Office of Justice to offset the cost of the city's mental health coordinator positions embedded in the Roseville Police Department. The grant is for a total of $200,000 and goes through June 30th, 2026. The funds will be used to pay fully for one of the mental health coordinator positions. The second position will be funded from a combination of existing public safety, aid, ARPA dollars, opioid funding, as indicated in the 2025 city budget. This action will also reclassify the mental health coordinators from grade 16 to 18 to reflect the change that we are asking to require that these positions be a licensed social worker. Item 10H approves a professional service agreement template to be used for contracted overtime conducted by the Roseville police officers at private businesses and events. Historically, the police department has not utilized a standard agreement or had consistent billing practices for these arrangements. Staff is looking for the council to approve the professional service agreement template that will allow the standardized agreements and reimbursement rates for contracted overtime of the Roseville police officers to be entered into by the police chief. Item 10I accepts the 2024 Police Department Body Worn Camera Audit Report. And finally, item 10J declares a vacancy for an additional opening at the Parks and Recreation Commission due to the death of Commissioner Jessica Ragar, and that was included in that sheet that I had with 4 openings. And that is the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trudgeon. Is there a motion on the consent items this evening?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder, seconded by Councilmember Strawn to approve those items. Discussion on the motion?
I had a couple
Councilmember
things.
Strawn?
I was happy to see that 1901 Ryan Avenue, the short-term rental, after so much consternation, had not had any issues this year. So I wanted to applaud them since they had a little bit of a hard time. I was pleased, and thank you for sharing the body-worn camera audit results. That is often an issue that people are very concerned about, and it was good to see that we passed that. Again, condolences on the loss of Commissioner Rager. I know she brought a really great, unique perspective to the Parks Commission, and I'm sure she will be missed there. And then I just wanted to know the rate of the contracted overtime for the police officers. Will this vary due to who is performing the services, or will there be a blanket rate that will be charged to each of these entities, no matter who is the officer on duty?
Councilmember Strawn, I'm not sure if I know that answer directly. I think it'll be fairly uniform, but I think there might be, if it's a smaller event, I'm not sure if the price would change. I don't know if the city attorney had conversations with the chief on that. I don't know what that rate is off the top of my head.
I did, Mayor, council members, I did have a conversation with the chief on that. My understanding is that the rate will be uniform for all officers. I don't know what it is, but that it would just be kind of a blended rate so that it would fully compensate the city and then be predictable for the contracting parties.
Okay.
So my only comment there was I wasn't sure if it's like a Walmart versus somebody's having an event at the Oval that needs to have an officer there, if there's a different rate that we're charging. But it is a blended rate for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it matters whether it's a city-sponsored event or not, but it's a per officer rate, is how it's based on, the amount compensated is per officer. But I guess I don't know if there's a difference for city-sponsored events versus contracted events.
I can do some follow-up and send that out to the council.
Thanks.
Just a follow-up on that, is that something that would be appropriate to have in our fee schedule? Or is that not something that goes there?
Mayor, you're reading my mind.
Okay. Wow.
At this point, I don't think
You could be an attorney.
it's not good. That is something that I discussed with the chief. It's a little premature right now because this is the beginning and we need to do some work with union contracts and things of that nature. But ideally, we would put it into the fee schedule. Until it's in the fee schedule, it's likely that we'll bring this back before you every year so that you can kind of reauthorize it. But once it's in the fee schedule, that might not be necessary.
All right, appreciate that. Other discussion on the motion on the consent agenda? All right, with that, we have the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Those items are approved or accepted. That then brings us to our future agenda review, communications reports, announcements. We'll begin with the city manager and future agenda review.
Yes, next week, of course, as we mentioned, the council will have interviews for the commission applicants, and both nights will be in this council chambers here and be videotaped. On the 24th is our next scheduled meeting. We'll start off with an EDA meeting, and we'll receive additional information about the housing study update. This is not the final report. This is another check-in. And then in the council meeting, we'll have a proclamation, receive an update on the volunteer program, receive an Equity Inclusion Commission update on their work, and then also receive an update on the Rosebrook Park capital improvements. That is the splash pad that is supposed to go in there. At the 3rd of March, we are looking to receive a presentation from Twin Cities North Chamber. Also, we need to appoint all those commissioners. And then we have reception of the 2024 Cash Reserve Fund report. And we have future meetings. March 17th, EDA probably touched that housing study again, not for the last time. Then also have a work session, and the 24th we have a meeting. Not a lot of agenda items at this point. In the background, of course, is a lot of stuff we need to do for the Maintenance Operations Center, so those will come forward. I do have a question for the council in regards to where we're at. If we are looking to implement the sales tax before April 1st, so we can start collecting July 1st, I would need to bring it to either 24th meeting or a March meeting. Is the council willing to consider that, knowing that we have this other information we're getting? And we talked about this in the 13th, but I've been thinking some more about it too. And I just don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves if the council's not there. So maybe this needs to be an agenda item, but if you can give me some sense of what we.
I would suggest that's an agenda item for an upcoming meeting.
Okay.
I don't think under future agenda review, we're not supposed to be
Sure.
making decisions. That's my take on it. Are there questions for the city manager on the future agenda or council member initiated items for future agendas or any reports or announcements? I will just note, and this puts a lot of pressure on our acting mayor, but I am not going to be able, I don't think I'll be able to attend much, if any, of the February 20th interview evening because that is a rescheduled 9 North Commission meeting or board meeting. That was originally supposed to be at the end of January, but it got rescheduled. So that unfortunately is on that evening, and I didn't want to be the one person who couldn't make that work.
Well,
So
this is the second one.
yes, so we
the
have some
night.
practice on the first night. Right?
To listen
Exactly.
carefully.
Yes. Okay.
Actually, I won't be there either.
Oh, okay.
It'll be easy then.
There we go. So you guys can do whatever you want. Right? So, no, but certainly want to make sure I can see the video. And,
Oh,
yeah.
I won't-
19th?
I won't be here for the commission, either of the commission meetings.
Oh, either of them. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, well, because this is on the week of President's Day.
Yep.
And so, I'll probably be gone every week that happens, so just so going forward.
Noted.
Noted.
All right. Other communications announcements from council members, council member initiated items? I see only one other remaining item on our agenda this evening, which is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Strawn, seconded by Councilmember Schroeder to adjourn. No discussion on a motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That passes unanimously, and we are adjourned at 7:20 p.m. Thank you, everyone.